Hello.
Hello, Ryan. You were
That
just trying to reach me. This is Kent Christensen.
yeah, this is Ryan.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, all right. I suppose I nothing very thrilling to say.
Yeah. Well, thanks for calling me, and I'm glad we got in touch finally.
Yeah,
So, just so you know, this is being recorded. It just helps me write it later.
sure.
Um, do you mind if we just jump in?
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So the way that this works is I'm gonna ask you questions. You can feel free to answer them, but you don't worry if you're rambling or anything. I like to have as much information as I possibly can and keep it as natural as possible.
All
So just
right.
feel to speak at length, and you could also speak about whatever you want to. You don't have to just talk to the question.
All right.
Okay, cool. So let's start with some easy questions. What is your name and where are you located?
My name is Kent Christensen. I'm currently located in Omaha, Nebraska. Um, and
And
that's about the extent of it.
and are you originally from Omaha?
Oh, I've been between here and California and Oregon at various times. But I've been here for a rather long time.
Were you born in the Midwest?
No, I was born in California, but I spent a great deal of my childhood in the right at the edge of the meat packing district in Omaha. So,
Interesting. And how old are you?
oh, toward the upper end of the 50s.
uh, and how long have you been making visual art?
Oh, of various sorts all of my life. I I turned to digital art a handful of years ago. Before that, I was doing extremely amateur drawings and the like.
And are you a schooled artist? Did you go to university for art?
Not at all. Everything I
Mm.
do has been very self-taught.
What programs do you enjoy using?
Right now, the main thing I am using is Night Cafe, which is the first and I think best of the artificial intelligence assisted art programs. And aside from that, just various free things I will use to edit images and the like.
Yeah, we use GIMP to lay out issues, which is of course
Exactly.
free.
It's free. It's reasonably easy to use.
It's functional, and I like to use things that are freeware if I can.
Exactly.
So before AI art, which is a relatively recent development in art, were you making pieces before AI art?
I was making mostly defaced or altered photographs, using GIMP mostly and other free
Mm-hmm.
photo modifying tools.
And when you make your AI art, do you still integrate your distorted photographs?
Most of them get reused as source images. They'll try to guide the new images that I'm making. So there's always something that's been done before being reused and made into something new.
And about how long ago did you start doing that?
Oh, almost a year ago.
And how long ago before that were you using digital programs to distort photographs?
Several years. I think it was about 7 years ago that I started at least started doing things like that and posting them on Facebook.
And what inspired you to do that originally?
Oh, kind of the desire for almost therapy, not so much the desire to have other people see what I'm doing, although that has something to do with it, but the desire to make something and see some sort of result that's not quite what I had in mind, but that comes into being during the process of making something. That seems to be what I was looking for.
Yeah, and do you have a process that you repeat, or do you augment how you approach the making of the work over time?
It will change over time. I will start doing one thing, and I will make a slight variation in prompts I'm using, or starting images that I'm using, and it will evolve over time because of that. The next product will be partially based on, but not very similar to the previous product.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you ever do art in as a physical medium, like not digital art, but something more tangible?
I used to draw, although I got into a very depressive state of mind where I couldn't focus on it anymore.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that comes back when you don't try to force it too hard.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sitting here right now, and of course I'm doodling. So the desire to produce some sort of image that you can see done that is strong.
Do you mind if I ask some questions, like background questions and things like that?
Go right ahead.
You said that your art is therapeutic for you. Do you struggle with mental illness?
I have for much of my life. I've been, I've been through the psychiatry industry and the pill pusher side of it, and would be glad to not repeat that. I think I've found that I can try to manage my own mind better than the psychiatry industry can.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that sort of thing takes people a long time to realize, and by then much of the damage is done. But yeah, yeah, I will interpret what I do as an attempt at self therapy first, and other things second. For that reason,
Do you have collaborators?
I have on a very few things in the past, but not recently. Although, if anybody wants to collaborate on anything, I will certainly try to accommodate them.
Do you work in other forms of art that aren't non-visual art, music, theater, writing?
Right now, I've been experimenting with some very amateur photography, but the that's sort of in its very experimental stages yet.
And would your goal be to eventually integrate that photography into your digital process?
Oh, I would like to integrate it all to make it all a more complete a more complete statement, or to simply create a set of images that resonate with one another, a set of things in various media that will also resonate with one another.
Okay, so let's go a little bit into your philosophy or your thought process for it. Um, what sort of what sort of content do you make? What inspires the pieces?
A lot of the visual strangeness of AR itself, I mean, it will assume things that don't look quite right aesthetically, but look very interesting and typical of its own look. And I try to encourage that. I try to encourage. I try to make images where I really don't know what the final result will be until it turns up and it's shown to me and whoever else looks at it. I think that element of unpredictability makes the whole field interesting.
So do you find that sometimes at the end it's a revelation to you
Oh
as well?
yes, I'm always looking for the result that's unexpected that I wasn't really looking for at the start.
Have you ever found that upon looking at the finished piece, you it shows you something about yourself?
It will often show me things about myself and things that seem to be references to things going on in society. Although these are certainly not things that I've ever, thought about while making something. They're just something that the mind is clever enough to pick up on when it sees something reminiscent and something I've done.
Yeah, like I wonder sometimes when I do work if okay, okay, for instance, you seem to follow your inspiration first and let it take you wherever it takes you. So it makes me wonder if there's not some part of yourself trying to communicate with the more conscious part of yourself by using this process.
Hmm. It makes a certain amount of sense to do so. I mean, you can draw on this large veil of this large amount of knowledge that isn't quite in your conscious field of reference. You can pull up images and try to drag them into your more conscious awareness. I think a lot of unpredictable images in art will do that. A lot of a lot of things that will come from a more intuitive or animal level will put you in touch with a sort of hidden mind and aware mind that need to be connected to one another somewhat. But I think I've just started rambling here and gotten away from your question. Um,
That's okay. Um, yeah, I was asking about whether the image that happens, but which you aren't intending, might not be your subconscious communicating with you.
or something very similar, at least referring to things that aren't aren't as visible to your conscious mind. There always seems to be this air of prompts, things that I will not consciously notice, but on some pre-verbal level I will find myself aware of. I think you can pull up things that aren't on the surface and relate to them that way.
Yeah, I always wonder what motivates our mind to want to make art, because in a way it's kind of like speaking, where when you have the impulse to do it, you do it,
Hmm.
but it's much more it's much less exact than words are, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Well, I think the impulse to do it is very, very strong, but the explanation is perhaps difficult.
Hmm.
Um,
There's some kind of rough translation process that you have to go
mhm.
through, or you can go through. You don't have to go through it. Do you ever find yourself just experimenting with the form for its own sake, just playing with how you make it?
I love to. I love seeing what unexpected results will turn up. What will happen? Just what will happen if I give unexpected instructions? If I do something slightly wrong? That's
Hmm.
I like experimenting in that way. Like having material of some sort there and seeing what might come out of it, rather than having a intent in mind, fixed in mind precisely.
And do you ever study your own past work with the intention of doing it new, finding a new way to do it?
I will look at it, and I will get ideas for further things. I don't know if it's the same thing new, but in the same vein anyway, the same ideas reworking themselves maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about specific color palettes? Do you find yourself repeating certain colors that you like?
I found myself fascinated with green and insect-like colors,
Mm.
things that remind me of them. They make their way into most things that I do.
So by insect-like colors, like I'm imagining you mean, shiny, darker colors, like dark colors, but with a luster to them.
Greenish colors or metallic chitin
Yes.
colors. And also, you know, if you see, you know, we'll just see a group of insects kind of randomly gathered on vegetation, and the clash in patterns and coloration that they have is interesting because it's not meant to clash; it just happened accidentally, but it looks
Mm.
very interesting.
Let's explore that for a little while. I like your use of the word insect-like. Do you did you find yourself appreciating the beauty of insects before you started working, or have you learned to appreciate them more through working?
I always had a liking for them, and I find that I have more of a liking for them and trying to do things that are inspired by how they look, or how they, you know, how they fit together in general.
And would you say that? Well, let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
Um, what it, I'm trying not to ask questions that are too broad.
Oh,
What 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 about them do you find beautiful?
I like the looks of things that don't look quite like we, meaning humans in general, look. You know, there will always be a difference. You know, if you look at something like the insect kingdom, they will have many of the same sense organs, but they're differently arranged. It's the thrill of things that look other than I myself do, or the things that operate in nature in filling a different niche than humans in general do. There's always that appeal of the difference, not like oneself, that keeps one attracted.
So it's the fact that they aren't fleshy, they aren't
They aren't quite like,
hairy.
yeah, they aren't quite human textured or human colored.
They seem to have their own way of doing things, their own. They almost seem foreign to the planet in a way. In a way,
Hmm. Although they've been here for so long that
yeah,
it's odd that people think that they do seem foreign because they do look unhuman, but they've been here for so very long.
it's true.
Which is also fascinating. Just the sort of briefness of the human experience of things.
Yeah, that's now you're touching on what I was thinking about. It's like insects are just doing something else, but in the same place as us. Like they're not foreign like an alien, but they just don't live their lives in regards to people at all.
Exactly.
Like a cat or a dog or even a squirrel, you could see has like a kind of relationship, a social relationship with a person. But insects
Hmm.
seem to just have a completely parallel life.
And it's hard to bring them together. You know, in many ways,
Hmm.
you couldn't really bring most insects indoors because a lot of indoor conditions would be harmful to them, and you
Hmm.
couldn't really fit into anywhere they manage to survive in any sort of human way. So there's always this slight tempting unfamiliarity.
Mm.
I think that unfamiliarity of things in general is one of the more appealing of things. There's always something that's just not known to oneself, and therefore oneself is always the more curious about it. Or maybe I'm just, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking too generally.
No, I think we're connecting a theme here through the whole conversation because you like to make work that you don't know the end of from the beginning. You're making use of artificial intelligence, which is not only a medium independent of your mind, but in fact seems to possess almost an independent will to your mind. And you appreciate insects who also are just parallel to human beings, and they exist in the same place as human beings, but they're not in a close social bond with us. So it seems like you're very interested in exploring the unfamiliar and even alien.
I am fascinated by the unfamiliar, and I wish I had more opportunity to know what's deeply unfamiliar to myself.
So that's all very interesting. So tell me about Omaha. Why do you live in Omaha?
Oh, it was, I wandered back here in kind of a mentally damaged state, and I really couldn't afford to live on the West Coast anymore. But I don't want to gripe about Omaha. It's there's nothing to gripe about it. It's just a very, for many years it was a very unfashionable part of this country. But I don't mind that. I do, kind of in the middle of everything, not cool enough to be damaging in some way.
What part of California were you from?
San Francisco.
Oh, that's wow. It's very much different than Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah, interesting. When did you leave California? How old were you?
Oh, in my 20s, mid 20s.
Interesting. So that's going back early 90s.
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
Yeah. Well.
And the part of the country has become so top down as far as being able, people not being able to live there who don't come from it too much
Absolutely.
money.
Yeah, it's very inflated up over there, money wise.
Which is a shame because, people who would normally live there who belong there can't afford to. But
yeah, and it's got such a cool radical history.
Yeah.
But now it's priced everybody out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was introduced to your art by Phoenix sharing it.
Oh.
Do you know Phoenix, or did they just find your art?
Only on Facebook sense, that's not outside of that, but
yeah, they're really interesting. They're part of a collective of musicians called the Giant Enemy Cancer Cult. I don't know.
I've heard some of their recordings.
I didn't know if you were directly involved with that or.
I'm not involved. I will follow. I will follow what they do. I will.
Yeah.
And it's good work.
Do you experiment with music at all?
It's been a long time since I have. And back then it was during the noise era, so I'm not sure if the word music is quite technically right, but
yes, a lot of noise artists get upset if I call it music. But were you a noisist?
Oh, I did very amateur products that I was very unsatisfied with myself rather than anything of a really complete sort.
No, I see. Do you have your work available online to see?
Just the Facebook site. I should really set up a set of my own. It'd make things a lot easier.
Is it on your? You do everything through your main profile, or do you have a page for it?
Oh, this is all still in my main profile. which is a very inefficient way of doing things. But
I respect it. I respect it. Not playing the game really. So, would you be willing to choose maybe 5 to 10 of your pieces for me to include in the article?
sure. Do you want me to just send them to you via Messenger?
Yeah, you can send them to me through Messenger.
Okay.
I plan on this interview being released in our December edition, which will be number 67.
Great.
We have 2 webs. Well, there's commodityfetishrecords.com where we release issues as part of that, and also I have my my art cult, which is Order of Celestial Integration, and I'll release it on that too.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah. So, 2 more questions here.
Okay.
Number 1, do you have anything you'd like to promote?
Not at the moment, and I feel like I should be guilty about saying that everybody has something to promote, but I don't at the moment.
And number 2, the final question: is there anything we haven't talked about that you would like me to include in the article?
Oh, I'm sure you'll get the point across. I can't think of anything right now, but thank you for asking.
Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I would like to look at your art some more, and
I
maybe
will get some things to you.
Yeah, and if you're interested, I can show you some links to my pieces too, just in a friendly way. Yeah.
Of course. I would like to see them.
Thank you for being so affable and amicable, and for making great art.
Well, it was good to talk. Good to talk to you, and thank you for being interested.
All right, you have a good night.
Well, you too. Good night. Bye.